You Should Have Left is about a couple and their young daughter who rent a house for vacation. It has some pretty famous actors in it, so I thought it'd at least be half decent. We open with this little girl having a nightmare about this creepy intruder.
How do you know my name?
Maybe because it's above your bed? And we get a double wake-up scene. There's kind of a lot of that in this movie. So this is Tiiu and Susanna, who are about 30 years apart and married. Because that won't cause issues later on. Susanna is an actress, and Tiiu goes to his wife's work and has to stand outside the set and listen to the most awkward sex scene ever. I don't remember a sex scene being in Furious 7, but okay. And then there's this awkward scene with Susie and Josh, and Tiiu is having jealousy issues. Gee, I wonder if they're having an affair.
Daddy, because you're old, you died before mommy, right?
Well, that seems like a bit of foreshadowing. But they rent a house in Wales and go away on vacation. Oh look, their cell phones don't work in this horror movie. What a surprise! Then there's this weird scene of Tiiu going through the house flipping light switches. I don't know what purpose it serves, but he finds a secret room, and I guess he spent 5 hours doing this. It turns out that Tiiu writes about his jealousy issues in a journal, because that won't be used later. And Susie tells her daughter that people act weird around Tiiu because his previous wife drowned in the bathtub, and people think that he killed her. Considering this is a horror movie, I wonder if he really did do it. Then there's this useless scene of Tiiu going to the store, and the clerk gets every item, one at a time.
Gotta be kidding me.
This scene only serves to show that there's something strange about the rental house, and then he gets a right angle. This is just a small thing, but did they just have him pour more wine, even though it showed he had some in his glass not even 5 seconds ago? That night, while Susie is taking a bath, Tiiu proceeds to check her messages on every Apple product that there is. So that night, Tiiu gets a weird message in his journal, and boom, random door. It leads to the basement, where he finds all these pictures of his family sleeping, and Ella down there. He realizes that he's dreaming, and wakes himself up by cutting himself with a bottle. Man, what is this movie's problem? But after that, Tiiu tells Susie about his dream, and they just decide to leave. But that plan gets upended after he finds out Susie has 2 phones. So he goes back to his office and finds another creepy message. Maybe he should have left after all. So he confronts her and finds out that she's having an affair because they didn't make it completely obvious earlier in the movie. So he kicks her out and she leaves. Well, it's a good thing they did all that in front of their 6-year-old daughter. Later that day, Ella spills some water, and Tiiu notices it pools in a weird pattern on the floor, because that makes sense. So he pours more water on the floor, and uses the right angle from earlier to check the angles of the walls. Why they decided that walls that aren't 90-degree angles means that the house is a hell house, I will never know. Oops. Did I just give away the ending? He measures the inside and the outside, and finds out that the inside of the house is larger than the outside. I'm not even going to try to figure that one out. But Ellie goes inside to get her coat, and then disappears. Hey, have you been enjoying the fact that this movie has somewhat of a coherent plotline? Well, I hope you didn't take it for granted, because now it's gone. So he starts looking for her, and the doors just randomly start taking him to random rooms in the house. Oh look, the door's back. So the door leads to the basement, I guess, and Ellie finds a woman in the tub. I wonder who that could be. And after going through some more randomly generated doors, he finds Ella in the front room. At this point, I've completely lost hope of this movie's ending making any sense. He can't get a hold of Susie, so he calls the shopkeep from the village and asks him to send a taxi. And instead of helping them, he starts talking about ants and the property's history, and reveals that the house is a hell house that is used to collect souls. You know, like I said earlier. And then, he just hangs up, like a dick. So they decide they're just gonna walk to the village.
Oh no.
Why did you unlock the door?
Okay, that was pretty funny. Did he just freaking leave her in there? When they leave, it shows there's someone in the house watching them, and after walking a while, they end up right back at the house. Who could have predicted that? So they go back inside and go to bed. Tiiu gets out of bed and goes to the bathroom, and then they play another game of RNG hide and seek. And he eventually reaches the office and sees himself writing in his journal from earlier, so he writes himself the warning from before. So this movie has time travel now. Great. And he starts seeing other random scenes from earlier, and yet he doesn't find it strange that his phone still works. By the way, that was the house's owner, Settler, on the phone. I think the writers just got bored and just wanted to see what random stuff they could get away with in the third act. But anyway, he gets teleported to the basement and meets Stettler. And Tiiu just starts wailing on him with his cane, and it turns out that Stettler is Tiiu's reflection, or something. I think it might be a metaphor for his guilt, but I don't know. But after Stettler disappears, Ella shows up, and so does Susie. And Tiiu tells Susie that he watched his previous wife drown and did nothing. Yep, I called it. So he stays at the house, and the devil has his soul now, I guess? I'm still not entirely sure what's happening. But the house goes back up for rent to continue the cycle. This is a half-decent movie, up until about the last half hour, when random things just start happening. The acting's pretty good, and it has a kind of interesting premise. They just really botched it towards the end. Don't forget to do the YouTube stuff, and thanks for watching.